کنفرانس جهانی همزمان با اعلام حکم دادگاه. ارتباط زنده آنلاین با مجاهدین در اشرف 3، دادگاه آنتورپ، شخصیتهای بین المللی و شاکیان خصوصی و یاران شورشگر. 3000 نقطه در 40 کشور جهان.
قسمت ششم. سخنرانی های میهال کامینسکی، معاون سنای لهستان. سناتور اریک ابتس، رئیس کمیسیون های خارجه، دفاع و تجارت سنای استرالیا. میشل دووکلور، نماینده مجلس ملی فرانسه. لورد مگینس، عضو مجلس اعیان انگلستان.
Dear President Rajavi, ladies and gentlemen, and dear friends who are committed to bringing democracy to Iran. It is a pleasure to speak on this occasion when justice is fulfilled and Asadi, a diplomat terrorist of the Iranian regime, has been convicted by the Antwerp court, and all the blackmail attempts of Iran regime to get him released before he faces justice have failed. This is a real relief for every Iranian or non-Iranian whose loved one has been killed in a terrorist attack by this regime. Every fulfillment of justice has its political consequences. It is unacceptable to ignore Antwerp court and continue business as usual with the mullahs. It is unacceptable to allow their terrorist agents to travel around Europe, hiding their terrorist faces behind diplomatic culture or religious covers. Last week, I, together with some 20 former European ministers and officials, joined Ambassador Terrazzi, former Foreign Minister of Italy, to appeal to the European governments and institutions to take a firm policy vis-à-vis Tehran regime's terrorism in Europe. And today, with this court verdict, we expect an end to the EU policy of appeasement. This policy was never acceptable, but after the court verdict, it is highly illegitimate. In the end, I would like to draw the attention of the EU leaders and EU foreign ministers to the fact that the Villepin case indicated how seriously Tehran is in its sphere of strong opposition movement, the National Council of Resistance of Iran, to take such a high risk to brutally attack them using its acting diplomat. Europe needs to be smart, to stand on the right side of the history in Iran and offer its full support to the NCR led by Mrs. Rajavi.
This would-be act of terrorism would have been devastating, especially as it sought to target the leadership of those that are fighting for democracy in Iran. The dictatorship in Iran is a rogue dictatorship. It is a dictatorship that breaches every fundamental concept of human rights. And so to those of you that are fighting for justice, not only in the Asadi case, but for all the Iranian people, that they might enjoy a true democracy, I send you my best wishes and commitment of solidarity of standing with you, albeit in the freedom-loving country of Australia. I look forward to the day when we might be able to celebrate Iran becoming a democracy and where the people of Iran are able to express themselves as freely as we have the privilege of doing in Europe and in Australia. Wishing you all the very best and looking forward to the day that we can celebrate democracy in Iran.
Bonjour mes chers amis. Présidente du comité parlementaire pour un Iran démocratique, j'étais présente à Villepinte au milieu de dizaines d'autres milliers de participants alors qu'un attentat était en train d'être fomenté sous la direction d'Asddi. Je salue le jugement ferme et exemplaire qui condamne Asddi en refusant l'immunité diplomatique derrière laquelle il se réfugiait. Comment en effet cela aurait-il possible de lui accorder cette immunité alors que la preuve a été faite que ce statut diplomatique a été utilisé pour mettre en place en Europe une cellule d'action terroriste et qu'il a utilisé la valise diplomatique pour transporter la bombe. L'exposé du jugement a bien démontré que cette action n'était pas celle d'un individu isolé, mais commanditée par le régime comme une tentative d'atteindre directement la présidente du CNRI, Mariam Rajavi. Aussi, ce jugement doit marquer un tournant dans les relations entre la France et le régime iranien. Il faut cesser de baser nos relations diplomatiques sur des espoirs vains d'évolution démocratique de ce régime. Nous ne devons pas accepter une diplomatie de façade face à un régime capable de fomenter un attentat sur notre sol. Les relations diplomatiques avec le régime iranien doivent être suspendues et reconduites seulement à la faveur d'une transition démocratique comme celle portée par la présidente du CNRI, Mariam Rajavi. Le temps est venu pour la France et l'Europe de soutenir cette transition. La France et l'Europe doivent être au rendez-vous de l'histoire. Je vous remercie.
Thank you for inviting me to this important conference. It is, as always, an honour to join with you and colleagues from around the world on this historic day. It is a great day, as once again, the true face of the brutal and vicious dictatorship in Iran is exposed to the world. It's also a reaffirmation of what my colleagues and I have been saying for almost 8 years, that neither Rouhani nor Zarif are moderates nor reformers. They are, in reality, but the smiling face of a brutal regime determined to deceive the ministers, diplomats, and journalists of the West into believing that the mullahs of Iran will somehow moderate their behaviour if the West showers them with a credibility they have not earned at any time since they slaughtered 30,000 of their own citizens in 1988. Over 30 years of terror that simply doesn't abate. The prosecution and trial in Belgium for terrorism of the regime's diplomat and his accomplices validates our position that there are no moderates within this regime. Terrorism and human rights violations are part of the regime's DNA. Zarif, Rouhani, and the Supreme Leader Khamenei are inseparable and united in exporting terrorism and suppressing the democratic opposition, the NCRI and the PMOC, both in Iran and throughout the free world. Now is the time to put the regime, including Zarif and Rouhani, on trial for their part in exporting the regime's terrorism abroad. Zarif has on multiple occasions boasted how he has sought to synchronize Iran foreign policy with the terrorist commander of the Quds Force, the now deceased Qasem Soleimani. Following today's verdict, no journalist nor minister can credibly nor honestly suggest that we should engage with so-called moderates in Iran, especially as they prepare for another sham presidential election later this year. Now is the time for the world's media to listen to the real voice of the Iranians. The National Council of Resistance of Iran, led by Madame Miriam Rajavi, with the NCRI's 10-point plan that she presented to the Council of Europe in April 2006. Had the West listened and responded positively 14 years ago, then the situation could have been different today, both in Iran, in Europe, and worldwide. To defeat the terrorism and fundamentalism emanating from Tehran requires the United Kingdom and the European Union to stand with the Iranian people and their legitimate NCRI movement as they march to a democratic plan to, as they put it, down the dictator. Or as they say, Khomeini, shame on you.